All right, welcome everyone to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here with us. Now, I want you to imagine today's session not just as your standard run-of-the-mill overview, but as a full-on, immersive study abroad style lecture. We're going to dramatically expand our philosophical horizons today. We spend so much time in traditional education, focusing on the thinkers of ancient Greece and Western Europe, and they're great. But today, we are packing our bags, we're traveling far beyond the Western canon to explore the brilliant, dynamic, and frankly deeply foundational concepts of indigenous philosophy from all around the globe. So grab your notebooks, because this is going to be a fascinating journey. Here is our roadmap for today's global classroom tour. First, we'll look at the historical shift from mythos to logos. Second, we'll dive into the unique challenges of studying indigenous philosophies. Third, we are heading to Africa to discuss Ubuntu. Fourth, we'll explore Native American metaphysics. And finally, we'll wrap things up in Mesoamerica with the Mayans and Aztecs. Okay, let's jump right into it with our first topic, the famous mythos to logos shift. To really appreciate indigenous philosophy, we kind of have to start by understanding the traditional narrative of how academic philosophy supposedly began in the first place. When you open up a standard philosophy textbook, you're almost always going to read about this massive historical transition in human thought. It's usually described as the move from mythos to logos. Now, mythos basically signifies the supernatural stories and myths that people used to tell to explain the cosmos and human purpose. Think of ancient, incredibly important texts like the Vedas in India or the Jewish Torah. Logos, on the flip side, represents the shift toward rational, logical, and scientific explanations. For the longest time, the academic world has framed this as a totally clean break, as if one day humanity just woke up and decided to swap out mythology for the scientific method.
But let's be real for a second. The transition was actually a lot more like upgrading from a paper map to a GPS. It wasn't some sudden dramatic break or total rejection of everything that came before it. The old map still gives you absolutely vital context for the landscape. The earliest philosophers everywhere, we're talking Greece, Rome, India, China, North Africa, they all used mythological stories to explain their new rational systems. Religion, philosophy, and science simply didn't exist in these neat little isolated boxes. They all zigzag together to guide our journey toward understanding what it means to be human.
Moving right along to Section 2, Studying Indigenous Philosophies. So, if philosophical thinking has always been this messy, interconnected, global pursuit, you might be wondering, why has Western academia historically just ignored the rich perspectives of indigenous cultures? Well, the answer lies in the intense challenges of studying what we call ethnophilosophy. For starters, indigenous philosophies heavily relied on oral traditions. They passed down complex knowledge through stories, rituals, and dances rather than writing books. And because of that, traditional academic philosophies simply dismissed them, claiming they were outside the realm of logos. But unfortunately, it gets much darker than just academic snobbery. This knowledge was actively suppressed through systemic racism, forced assimilation, and the devastating erasure caused by European colonization. We literally lost countless philosophical insights to deliberate acts of destruction, like the horrific burning of the Maya codices, or the massive loss of local cultural knowledge during the European colonial scramble for Africa.
Which brings us to our third stop on the tour, African philosophy and Ubuntu.
Despite all those immense historical challenges we just talked about, these brilliant philosophical traditions absolutely survived. And hey, it's worth pointing out right out of the gate that if formal philosophy supposedly requires written language to count as logos, well, with the development of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, that transition actually started right here in Africa. But looking beyond just the written word, African scholars have beautifully translated their rich oral traditions into a robust philosophical worldview. Central to this is the Zulu concept of Ubuntu. Translated simply as humanity, Ubuntu expresses a deep, intrinsic natural interdependence. It's a communitarian philosophy that is often beautifully summarized by the maxim, "I am because we are." It argues that human beings are so profoundly connected that we literally depend on one another for our very existence. In this view, the community is always privileged over the isolated individual. To put Ubuntu into perspective and make it instantly relatable, just think about a sports team or a symphony orchestra. You absolutely cannot be a point guard if there's no team to play on. Your identity, your specific role, your purpose, all of it only exists in relation to the people around you. You're a point guard precisely because they are your teammates. And that right there is Ubuntu in action in your everyday life. Now, to show you just how rigorous African philosophy really is, we have to talk about the groundbreaking research of Nigerian philosopher Sophie Oluwole. She did something amazing. She directly compared Socrates, the famously renowned Greek founder of Western philosophy, with Rúnmìlà, who was the high priest and first philosopher of the Yoruba people. Oluwole pointed out that while Socrates operated on a really strict binary worldview, rigidly separating good from evil and physical matter from pure ideas, Rúnmìlà taught what's called a complementary dualism. In Yoruba philosophy, matter and ideas are totally inseparable, and the positive and negative are an interconnected pair. It's much more like two sides of the exact same coin. And notice the incredible shared genius between these two traditions. Think about this. Neither of these men ever wrote a single thing down during their lifetimes, yet both are recognized as the absolute founders of their philosophical traditions. When asked about the limits of human knowledge, Socrates essentially said, God only is wise, openly admitting his own ignorance. And Rúnmìlà, an entire ocean away, said of God, he alone is the possessor of that sort of wisdom. It is mind-blowing. Two foundational thinkers who never met, arriving at the exact same profound conclusion about human limitation. All right, let's cross the Atlantic for Section 4, Native American Metaphysics. Let's shift our focus to North America, where we're going to explore thousands of distinct, localized, oral-based metaphysical traditions. Now, I know it's incredibly tough to generalize thousands of unique societies, but scholars have actually identified some really fascinating core metaphysical traits. Unlike Western thought, which often relies on these static rules and a single human-like God, Indigenous North American metaphysics is all based on interactive, animate processes. The creation of the universe is often seen as something akin to a thought process, brought about by multiple creators who definitely don't look like humans. There is a massive emphasis on balance and exchange. For example, the Dene people view breath as a fundamental sacred force that is actively exchanged through all natural processes. Furthermore, concepts like gender aren't just put into static boxes. They're understood as animated, non-binary, and fully capable of developing and changing over time. This dynamic, moving view of reality completely changes how you view yourself. Let's look at the Pueblo concept of the transformative model of identity. Instead of seeing your identity as this locked box hiding inside your head, this model views social identity as a spiral. It spirals outward to physically encompass the land around you and your community, and then it spirals inward back to your ancestral roots over time. So, very much like Ubuntu, Native American cultures often view human beings fundamentally as a we, rather than a lonely, isolated I. If you want a great way to visualize this outward and inward spiral, just think about the actual process of growing up. When you're a child, your world is pretty small, right? But as you age, you expand your footprint outward. You explore your neighborhood, maybe you move to a totally new city, or you travel the world. But eventually, as you mature, there's very often this deep, natural pull to spiral back inward, to return home, to truly understand your roots, and to pass that knowledge on. That dynamic, ongoing journey, that is your identity. Finally, let's head south for Section 5, Mesoamerica, focusing on the Mayans and Aztecs. So here we are at our final destination for today's lecture. Down in Mesoamerica, we find incredibly sophisticated written languages, highly complex mathematics, and natural philosophies that honestly rivaled and in many ways totally exceeded those of ancient Europe. The Mayans had this unbelievably advanced knowledge of astronomy, and they developed a highly sophisticated calendar system. They were predicting solar eclipses with stunning accuracy. But get this, it wasn't just math for math's sake, it was deeply philosophical. They believed in a concept called kin, which is a single godlike sun force or energy. For the Maya, time itself was the literal expression of kin. Their experiential understanding of time meant that experiencing pure awe at natural astronomical events was a deliberate way to bring oneself entirely into the present moment. It increased their awareness of this solar energy and cleared their minds so they could make better decisions. Fast forward a few centuries, and the Aztecs developed a similarly dynamic metaphysics, this time centered on a concept known as Teotl. Now, Teotl isn't some static being or a grumpy old man in the sky, not at all. It is a pantheistic, amoral energy or process. It's the fundamental sacred source that fuels literally all life, matter, and motion. Teotl is the dynamic force of nature itself, and it is continually changing and unfolding through time in a cyclical, not linear, fashion. Now, because the universe is constantly unfolding in this endless, dynamic cycle of Teotl, Aztec epistemology, which is just a fancy word for their theory of knowledge and truth, is entirely unique. To the Aztecs, truth was never just some factual sentence you memorized to pass a test. Truth actually meant well-rootedness. Truth is a property of a strong character. Why? Because they believe the Earth is quite literally slippery. Existence is a process of constant cyclic change. So to survive it, you have to ethically and physically ground yourself.
Let's pull this all together with an analogy. Navigating a slippery earth is exactly like trying to walk down a completely iced-over sidewalk. Think about it. If you're rigid or unobservant or leaning off balance, you are going to fall hard. You need strong footing, incredibly careful steps, and an acute awareness of your shifting environment just to survive the walk. That's why well-rootedness is the ultimate goal in Aztec philosophy. It's practically the only way to thrive in a universe that literally never stops moving. And that brings us to the end of our global tour. But before you go, I want to leave you with a little bit of philosophical homework, pulling straight from the Socratic method. Taking the profound wisdom of the Aztecs, I want you to honestly ask yourself, in your own incredibly fast-paced, rapidly changing modern life, how do you maintain your balance on the slippery earth? What keeps you well-rooted? Think on that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep